Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about having Cancer placements in your first house. So any Cancer placement in your first house. If you have no idea what I'm saying and you're new to astrology, I'm very sorry. I have a playlist. It's numbered 1 to I think 21 so far. And each episode or what have you tells you how to read your chart. So if you don't understand what I'm saying, I'm sorry, that should explain it more. How to read your birth chart. If you don't have your correct time, then you won't know what houses that your stuff falls in. So even if you are Cancer and you think it's in the first house, you could be wrong. So make sure that you're really careful about that. I say it literally every single video, I'm sorry. But today I'm gonna do my makeup. We're gonna talk about Cancer in your first house. And yeah, I'm gonna get ready and ramble. So buckle up. All right, so Cancer in your first house. So your first house is represented by Aries. Aries is a fire sign. It doesn't matter what on your chart your first house says. It always has like underlying Aries tones. But your first house should say Cancer next to it if you have any first house placements here. And that's what you should be looking for. So it's Cancer with underlying tones of Aries, which is quite a ride. I always look so crazy with just like the blank face canvas. I look so crazy. Cancer is representative of emotions and family. If you don't have family, then it's most likely going to be related to things that pertain to past things you've had with family, or also people who you... So it's people who you may feel are family to you, if that makes sense. I don't see why that wouldn't make sense, but you know. So yeah, Cancer is like love, emotions, stuff like that. And your first house is a little bit more on the aggressive side. So any placement here is going to be amplified by Aries. So it's going to act more like boiling water, because Cancer is water, then it's going to act like regular just water just hanging out. It's got a little more oomph to it, if that makes sense. So having your sun in Cancer is more of how you see yourself rather than how people see you. You think people see you like your sun, but they probably don't unless it has a lot of other placements, which is possible. So if you have a sun in a certain sign, a lot of times you'll have Mercury, Venus, and or Mars in the same sign, which makes you more likely to act like that. But your moon sign is more of like how you actually feel on the inside. And then your rising is more of how other people really do truly see you before they get to know you, before they get to know like what makes you tick, how things are inside that noggin. So if you have a sun in Cancer in your first house, you're going to seem very nurturing. You're going to seem very lovey-dovey and in an aggressive way, maybe even possibly a smothering type of way, because it amplifies it a little bit extra. If you are a Cancer moon in the first house, you're going to be a little bit more smothering and a little bit more pushy, a little bit more lovey-dovey, a little bit stronger on the emotions. You're going to be probably a little bit more likely for people to realize that that's how you are than if you had it in a lot of other placements. Any other house is going to be more calm than this, and it's not going to be as straightforward in your face. People aren't going to immediately notice this about you if you have it in like an earth sign house, stuff like that. A lot of times Cancers are a little bit more bottled up, a little bit more they keep to themselves. So it's really nice for it to be in the first house, because the first house will help to contradict that and make them a little bit more feel at home with saying how they feel, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more likely to tell you how they feel than a lot of other Cancer placements, because a lot of times Cancers very much keep to themselves. They don't have much to say about things unless they feel very strongly about it, or if they have other placements that push them in this direction. If you have a Cancer Mercury in the first house, that means you're going to speak to people very emotionally from it being Cancer, but also a little bit more aggressive and stronger because it's in your first house, which is a really, really cool placement. It's probably a little scary when you get mad, but every first house placement in Mercury has a little bit more strength in what they say, which is cool. If you have a Cancer Venus in the first house, you are going to love people very, very, very affectionately and probably treat them as if they were family, especially if they are your family or if they're very, very close friends. You're gonna be the mama bear type with your friends or with anyone in general like that, because Venus is love, Cancer is emotion, and the first house is going to make it even stronger and even more amplified. If you have a Cancer Mars, you're going to be like the most crazy mama bear ever, which is really cool. I think it's a nice placement, especially in the first house. It's going to be even more like, no matter what you have that's Cancer Mars, they actually get a really bad rep. People make fun of them a lot because they love so aggressively. But in the first house, because Mars is ruled by Aries and it's Cancer Mars in the first house, it makes it even worse. That's so scary. You probably would literally get arrested for somebody who you love, and I admire that. Having a Cancer Jupiter is a wild ride already, because it's learning from family. It's what you're lucky in, and it's kind of like what your gifts are and stuff like that. So if it's in your first house, it's going to be very interesting, because not only are you going to learn from your family, which is possibly from hurt or bad things, unfortunately, but they're also going to make you lucky, which is crazy. And then in your first house, it's going to make you even more stubborn. So if it wasn't enough already for whatever other placements you have, depending on what you have, you're gonna want to learn. You're gonna want to learn, and you're going to be good at learning in an emotional way, but you're going to be so stubborn about it that it might take you a couple tries. People might have to hurt you a few times before you really learn your lesson. Anything first house is stubborn, super, super stubborn, and yeah, like, I'm so sorry. Sorry. If you have any Saturn placements in the first house, ouch. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I feel like I say that a lot, but it's really hard because Aries is not exactly known for being super stable. They can be. They can make it happen, don't get me wrong. But where they are having a hard time with, it's nice that they're stubborn, but it gives it a harder time depending on what placements are there. So for it to be Cancer, you're emotionally going to have a harder time, especially regarding family. You could possibly use family as a little bit of a crutch, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can be if you rely on it too heavily. So you want to make sure that you have a really good balance and you learn to be independent as well, which Aries is great because Aries is independent. So Aries kind of fighting the Cancer placement can possibly give you like a little bit of a like an identity disorder. Then when you mix that with the fact that Saturn is stability, so you've got water, which is not stable, you've got Saturn, which wants to be stable, and then you have the first house, which is definitely not stable. And all those things combined are completely contradicting things. Saturn is earth, Cancer is water, and the first house is fire. So all of these elements are constantly fighting each other, which is good for balance, but also a struggle. If you have Uranus in your first house in Cancer, that's kind of a really sweet placement, I think, because you go from not having stability and wanting independence from the first house, but Cancer kind of forces you to love your family and think more thoroughly about your emotions. What's funny though is that this can result in you being a little bit overbearing of your friends because you have Cancer and it's aggressive and it's amplified and it's what makes you unique, or what your dreams are is Uranus. So it goes from like loving people really hard to like loving, and that's your thing that you do really well, and it's in the first house. So wow, you're probably a really good friend. You're probably a really, really good friend. A little crazy maybe though. If you have a Neptune in Cancer in your first house, you probably really want a family, or you just want to be close or feel like you have a family or feel loved. I did not mean to get this deep, but that's probably how it is. So, wow. You're probably a sweet, sad baby. Good luck with that. And finally, if you have Cancer in Pluto, that means you'll transition into having a family, having loved ones, feeling deep emotions and connections to people most likely, which is really cool because Pluto is, I consider to be like a collectiveness. And it's also in your first house, so that makes it a little bit stronger, a little bit more amplified. That's a nice placement to have as well, even though they a little bit contradict each other. It's cool to know that people who are going to have Pluto in Cancer are going to feel strongly about taking care of their loved ones. I just think that's a nice thought. Can you tell that I have a Cancer Mars from all of these things that I'm saying? Oh no. Okay. But yeah, if you have Cancer in any of those placements, that's most likely how you're going to act. But if you have contradicting things, that will change stuff. So if you have a lot of heavy earth signs, say some of your placements didn't make it to Cancer and they're contradicting other ones, so they're more earth signs, earth is going to tame you down a little bit more than that, especially for the first house, especially for water. It's going to make you a little bit more calm, not so easy to show how you feel. And if you have more air, it's going to make you talk about things more rather than act on it. If you have a lot of air with these placements, it's going to make you talk about it more than act on it, which can be difficult for people to understand, especially if you are a very loving person and you have the actions that want to do that, but you have a lot of heavy air, which makes you just talk about it and not actually do it. I'm sorry. Sorry. So yeah, that's Cancer in your first house. I hope you found this helpful. I hope that whoever you're stalking has a Cancer Mars in their first house and they're gonna love you forever.